right. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Never Stop Healing podcast. This is your host of the morning, Cade Archibald, and I am pumped to be with everybody today. We are a couple days away from Christmas, so hopefully everyone's prepared. You got everything ready. All right. Well, last night we had an awesome hack, our Health Accelerator challenges. If you're not a part of that community, make sure you dive in. That's go to acueastwest.com/hack. That's HAC. And you can learn more about that. Become one of our Accelerate Wellness members. We talked about liver and kidney health last night. Learned some really cool stuff about armpit smells and all sorts of stuff. So you guys have some really cool challenges coming up for the Christmas break. So make sure you are aware of what's going on. You can self-diagnose with some smelly pits, or maybe if they're doing well, you're doing pretty well. So so that was what we talked about last night in the hack. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper and continue on that same vein today, right, Regan?
Yep. Yeah. Today we'll be going even deeper on the kidneys and liver, and really just get a deep dive into what the functionality is. So let's dive in and we'll talk about the kidney and liver. And actually, the real challenge that we had for you guys in the hack last night was the liver is about creating clarity in your life, and the kidneys are what houses our destiny, or basically what you've got in store for your future. And so the real hack is, you can smell people's armpits if you want, but the real hack is it's actually getting a destiny, getting a purpose in your life. Making sure that the things you want to accomplish in the next year are aligned with your overall internal goals and vision and your internal destiny. And so that's it. It's kind of a different take on a New Year's resolution. It's just like, actually, we have a motto here at East West: is what anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so make sure that the things that you're going to be doing next year are worth doing at all. I think that was it. So check in with that deeper part.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Well, let's dive into today's topic. Regan Archibald, just amazing expert here on liver and kidney health. And he's the founder and creator of the Accelerate Wellness programs in East West Health. He's also helping with training and facilitating trainings for other doctors and healthcare practitioners to really help solve some of these underlying conditions with patients with some of these problems, and creating some really innovative healthcare. So, Regan, let's dive into some kidney and liver health.
Okay. So, one of my patients came in, this was about 16 months ago, just under a year and a half ago. And as I looked at his labs, he said, look, I'm trying to avoid dialysis. And so he said, not only that, but I've got fatty liver disease. And as we started analyzing it, he was pretty active, but he drank too much, and he was too stressed, and he worked really hard in his career. And one of the things that we uncovered in this is that his body was stopping its detoxification processes, and so his energy levels were really low. His joints ached all the time, and he was frustrated because he was now in his late 60s, and he said, well, if I'm on dialysis, he realized that was, going to be, kind of a death sentence, because dialysis would require so much time. And so I told him, I said, look, I don't know that we can reverse your your kidney failure, but we can certainly get you healthy. And we've worked with a lot of people with kidney issues, and I have over the years, and it's been amazing. But we slowly started working with him, and his GFR when we started was at 13. So he was heading into like stage 4 renal failure, and his his kidney doctor, his nephrologist, wasn't super supportive of him doing anything. But then, I said, hey, I think you should probably let your doctor know that what you're doing. And so our team here was willing to work with him. Actually, we reached out a couple of times, but his nephrologist didn't actually communicate very well with us. But anyway, the patient said, well, I've been working with the same nephrologist for 10 years. So, and he just watches my kidneys get worse and worse and worse. And I got to try something before I end up, with dialysis. And so we went to work, and we're helping him out. And so today, what I'm going to share with you are some of the things that we did for this particular individual, and that we've done with several others to help them recover kidney and liver health and to live a life that's more optimized. Because at the end of the day, your kidneys and liver are integral to your body's overall function. I mean, I think all of us could agree that if we don't have a brain, that's probably the most important organ. If you don't have a heart, you're not going to get blood transported. But then you say, well, beyond that, well, it's your liver and kidneys, and they're actually really integral to your body's overall health. So as we go through this, one of the things I don't want to do is bore you with details about the physiology behind these organs and glands, but I do think a little bit of context makes it really helpful in understanding what they do and their functionality in the body. So we'll jump into some of the functions, especially in the kidneys, how it relates to the liver, and then we'll talk about some of the treatments that most people overlook. And some of these treatments are, 2,000-year-old therapies that have been used on humans for millennia. And then we'll jump into some of the more innovative treatments with peptides and nutrition that actually might just give you some new insights that could literally change your life. So first of all, let's think about your liver and kidneys and say, what if we could create ultimate health in these systems in the body? And creating ultimate health, if you look at what your kidneys do, well, part of what they're there for is to filter sodium and salt and other electrolytes. And when we say create, better health in these systems, even if you are somebody who has super healthy kidneys, you've never had a problem, this is really important for you, because it's the death by 1,000 cuts syndrome. And death by 1,000 cuts is when we lose hydration in our body, and when our cells don't have the spark that they need, because electrolytes, if you think about them, it's a positive and a negative charge. And so what the kidneys are doing is creating that polarity that adds an energetic reserve to your health. And so one of the interesting studies that was performed a couple of years ago is they took students and had these college students take a test. And this test, was basically measuring cognitive capabilities. And from that test, they said, all right, well, now the students, they made sure they were fully hydrated, and they had different mechanisms of looking at the elasticity in the skin and measuring urine output for adequate electrolytes in their body. And then they circled back around, and they had the students get dehydrated just by 5%. And that dehydration, then they had them retake the same test, and the students performed 20% worse on the test. So they had a 20% deficit in cognitive function from being just 5% dehydrated. And so the hydration and your kidneys, by the way, are what lead to adequate hydration in all the cells in your body, and they send a signal to your brain, and that signal is what allows those electrolytes to be transported properly and to be absorbed into the cells so that you have great energy levels. And not only does it help the cells in the body, but it also helps the brain. And I think this is an interesting thing because your brain requires about 20% of the electrical energy in your body. And so that study was very reflective on the importance of hydration. And so having healthy kidneys, it starts with having healthy electrolyte balances. And one of the things that we've done in modern society is we've taken our water and we filtered it out, which is great because then we can have bigger cities and we can all, enjoy having, sterile water or potable water. But the problem is, we remove the minerals, we remove a lot of the electrolytes that are really helpful to nourish the body. And so one of the things that happens is when your dehydration comes down, you lose the ability to remove waste from the body. And then also what you'll notice too is your blood pressure, your adrenal glands, which are what regulate some of the stress responses in the body, sit right on top of your kidneys. And one of the hormones that gets secreted when we're under stress is a hormone called aldosterone. And aldosterone is what will cause vasoconstriction, which can increase your blood pressure. And so one of the things that hydration does really well at is it helps stabilize blood pressure. Your kidneys are really important for removing any kind of waste. They regulate hormones. Some of the major hormones beyond just aldosterone is cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that regulates your circadian rhythms. And when your kidney function is adequate and when you've got the right filtration systems going on in the kidneys, you're going to see a better expression of hormones. You'll also see a better release of calcitonin, which, the calcium and phosphorus levels. We have a gland called the parathyroid, which sits under your thyroid gland. That parathyroid gland is directly connected to your kidneys. And so for you to have some calcitonin and to have good bone mineral density, you need to have healthy kidneys. So your kidneys are really intended to maintain far more areas of the body than just how often you're urinating. But here's some things you can look at on the liver. So the kidneys and liver, one of the things that happens is if your kidneys get dehydrated, or if your filtration systems start to get backed up, your liver is really equipped for supporting the movement of electrolytes and the movement of hormones, and it's a backup system. And so if the kidneys aren't functioning well, then the liver kicks in. And so this is where, looking at the patient I referenced earlier, when I was looking at his labs, I noticed, okay, fatty liver, and he's entering into stage 4 renal failure. And so looking at that, if we could have caught him 20 years earlier, and yes, this story does have a good ending, but man, it could have been so much better if he would have spent a little bit of time focused on health and not just having his specialists. There's amazing specialists out there for the kidneys and liver and every other system in the body, but the problem is they're focused on disease, and that's what they specialize in, not focused on specialization in the health of these systems. And so with the liver, one of the interesting things that happens with the function of the liver is you'll see better protein synthesis. And so this means, not just proteins you're eating from a digestive perspective, but also cholesterol transportation and breakdown. The liver helps in immune function. It helps with copper bioavailability. The liver also helps produce bile. That's B-I-L-E, not B-I-O. It sounds very similar with my Idaho accent, but bile is what emulsifies and breaks down fats. And then also it helps with antimicrobial properties. So it's really interesting to see how those work out. as you think about the health of your liver. And so the other thing is micronutrients. So copper, zinc, magnesium, iron, that all gets transported and stored in your liver. So if you're looking for a backup energy system, that's where your liver can come into action. And this is where, when the kidney energy starts to drop and when our kidneys aren't functioning well, then your liver, you want that to circle back around and pick up the slack. The liver is also really important for metabolism. So if you've noticed that, hey, my kidney function's not where I want it to be, I'm kind of at that stage 1, stage 2, kidney failure or kidney disease, well, get your liver healthy. And this is where, getting adequate minerals and nutrients in, but also looking at your thyroid labs, because one of the things that you'll notice is your conversion to T4 into T3. These are thyroid hormones. For you to have the active version and a healthy version of thyroid hormone, then you definitely want that conversion to be healthy. And so working on your liver is a really important part of this overall puzzle. So if you think about your kidneys as they start to fail, one of the interesting analogies that I had a professor give me, over 20 years ago. My background is originally I wanted to be anything but a rancher. I grew up on a farm, a cattle farm in Idaho, and so I had a great uncle named Lester J, and he was a doctor. And I said, okay, he's got a great life. That's what I want to do. And unfortunately, as I got into my pre-medicine work at the University of Utah, I started to get sick. I'd fall asleep in class. My brain wouldn't work. My joints started to ache. I couldn't quite muster the energy I needed. And so I finally started going to some doctors and getting blood work ran, and they all looked at it and said, hey, everything looks normal. You're just fine. Let's watch and wait and see if it gets worse. And if it does come back, and I pretty much got the same answer from every single place I went, until finally I was referred to a naturopathic doctor who's also an acupuncturist. And when I got the right labs ran, it was revealed that I had an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's. And so that was a wake-up call for me, because so often in medicine, the system is designed around you fitting into a nice diagnostic box. And it's no different in kidney disease. If you're at, kind of stage 1, then let's watch and wait. And when it gets to stage 2, we'll take it a little more seriously. And then stage 3 is where, there might be some medications deployed. And then stage 4 is dialysis. And so, I did not want that same thing that happened to me. When I started realizing, like, oh, if I can actually be proactive about my health, working with this naturopathic doctor, I was able to go and change my diet. I was able to get my health restored. And then it was when I was in practice, I learned about peptides and some human tissue allografts with umbilical cords that literally turned my Hashimoto's and into remission. So I have a healthy thyroid, and that's been amazing. But it was through this idea that, hey, maybe treating the body when it's really sick is the worst time to treat it. And so, but our whole medical model was built around that, which is, one reason I founded East West was to have a model where we do have the innovation of science, and more cutting edge modern technology in Western medicine, but it's got to be combined with more holistic medicine that looks at the body as a whole. And so now, when I was in my training, I ended up at an integrated medical school in Hawaii on the Big Island. And one of my professors, when he was teaching us on kidney health, used this analogy. If you think about a garage door, your kidneys are like, it's a filtration system. And so imagine if you had a garage, this big garage door, but the garage door wouldn't open. And then you have your trash that needs to be removed. And so you couldn't remove the trash until you open the door. And yeah, you have a side door and you can start bringing trash out there, but the trash is accumulating too fast. And then it starts to build up. And that's essentially what kidney disease is. is you can't remove the waste from the kidneys. And this is where you'll start seeing your Boone levels go up, your creatinine levels go up, your GFR will go down. And it creates a big backup in the body, no different than how it would be in your garage, where you'd have all this trash and garbage that started to accumulate. And so, when your kidneys stop functioning suddenly, that can be a dangerous condition, because that's like when both doors get closed, and that means you lose the ability to excrete waste, and you have no movement of electrolytes. And it's a really dangerous place, because you can actually have cardiovascular failure in that. So here's some of the symptoms that you want to look at when it comes to your kidneys. Do you have nausea, loss of appetite, sometimes vomiting? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have any cognitive or mood changes, mostly due to electrolyte levels shifting and dehydration? Do you have confusion, trouble sleeping, anxiety, fatigue, trouble concentrating, weakness, and brain fog? Do you have kidney pain? It might feel like kind of a throbbing pain in your back. And we've had a lot of patients who've come to us over the years, and they say, I've got this horrible back pain. I think I threw my back out. And it's just a simple examination where we realize, that's actually from your kidneys. And so we run a urinalysis, run blood work, and usually we find that there's issues with their kidneys. Maybe it's an infection. We've seen a lot of patients with kidney stones, and there's some amazing Chinese herbal formulas that we've used for kidney stones over the years that have just been transformative. Are you producing less urine than usual, or sometimes not at all, or frequent urination? Sometimes if you notice blood in your urine or color changes, these are really important things. Do you have any fluid retention or swelling due to imbalance of electrolytes, especially if you look at your lower extremities? And if you notice that there's puffiness in your legs, ankles, feet, even face and eye puffiness and swelling, those are all symptoms of issues with your kidneys. And so you don't want to take it light, because when your kidneys become diseased or fail, this is pretty detrimental to your health, because then this is typically when you fell on the traditional therapies, then that's where there's a couple types of dialysis that we want to help you avoid. So once again, as you start looking at all these issues with fluid retention, if your skin doesn't sweat, if you have breathing or lung issues, even varicosity, spider veins, cellulite, flabby skin, morning stiffness, you wake up and you're just like, I don't feel great. History of anemia. If you've noticed there's a blue tint in the white part of your eyes, the sclera, that can be an indication. Hoarse voice. If you look at your fingernails and you have white spots on your fingernails, this can also be an issue in your kidney drainage pathways. If you crave chocolate, if you have, feet that have a strong odor, and that's, barring you don't have fungus in your shoes, or you change, you haven't worn socks for 3 days, same socks 3 days. But if you notice like, my feet just don't smell great. If you're unable to hold your breath for long periods of time, if you walk upstairs and you notice you get to the top of the stairs and you're wondering, why am I winded? All of these things, muscle cramping, poor muscle endurance. And if you notice you're just not thriving and you're like, I'm losing progress, even though I'm trying to gain better exercise, health, there's a good chance that you could have some issues with your kidneys. And kidneys are really critical. And what we see is in about 90% of the labs that we look at, we see kidney issues. And I'll show you some of these labs in just a minute here. But this is according to the World Kidney Day, and this is kind of the idea around chronic kidney disease. That's what CKD is. And we have this phenomenal nephrologist in our Go Wellness group who's helped hundreds, if not thousands of patients reverse chronic kidney disease. We've now helped her put the peptides in, which has given her even better results. But really, this is the progress. This is how our typical medical treatment is get a healthy diet, proper treatment, early stage of chronic kidney disease, different medications, to regulate the output of urine and to regulate blood pressure. Dialysis is next, and then end stage kidney disease. If dialysis isn't working, then it's the transplant. And so, the fact that people are promoting this idea that there's no cure for chronic kidney disease, well, I think the cure for anything is being proactive and addressing things as early as possible. But maybe there's some ways that we can show you that go beyond this old model of, hey, my fish is sick. Let me just throw some medication at him, and you end up with this fish that's ultra medicated. The new model is like, well, why don't we clean out the fishbowl? Why don't we see if maybe the body can actually heal if it's got the right environment? And I think that's the big thing that I'd like to shift gears to now and say, well, let's talk about some of these things. But before we do, here's some of the things you can do to take care of your kidneys. And many of these are from one of my favorite patients, and all of you are my favorite, but this was, I had a Dr. Leach who ran dialysis centers. And so he would come in and he's moved now, but he would come in often, and he'd always say, Regan, are you getting your patients off ibuprofen? Get them off acetaminophen. All these non-steroidal antibiotic or anti-inflammatory drugs are killing people's kidneys. And he was seeing patients younger and younger and needing dialysis. And in many cases, it was due to the fact that they were swallowing mountains of ibuprofen, acetaminophen. And these drugs, even though you can buy them over the counter, they have very disturbing side effects. And each of us, based on our genetics, process these types of medications differently. And so one of the things that you'll see, especially with ibuprofen, is not only does it stop your body's own healing signaling in your body's stem cells, but what it also can do is create leaky gut. And then it starts to back up in the kidneys, and it can create an issue in your blood pressure. It can also create some hypersensitivity issues. And then as chronic kidney disease shows up, you can end up having more pain in your body, which results in these patients taking more of these medications. And this is why Dr. Leach said, the more that you can get the patients off these, the better. And he started sending patients over who had kidney stones, who had, early stage renal failure. And we found that in the majority of the cases, we were able to get things healthier in their body and turn things around very naturally without the risk of, more medications and dialysis. So we'll talk about how we do that. But first of all, before we jump into the solution, this is our mantra at East West. And, we have this saying that anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so this is where it comes to a personal choice of yours. How healthy do you want your life to be? Because we all have to look at it and say, okay, where are the things that need fixing, and what's worth doing? So what's, in that, when it comes to health, it's like, okay, well, a lot of us, we have bought into this idea that there's nothing that can be done. My kidneys are where they are, my liver is where it's at, and there's nothing that can be done. But actually, would it be worth you having healthier kidneys? We've looked at some of the outcomes, and it's not pleasant. Being on dialysis, it takes hours out of your week, out of every day of the week in some cases, and so it's just not helpful. And so treating your kidneys could be one of the most meaningful things you can do for your health. We want to make your next decade your best decade. So if you're already in the waiting room and thinking, now there's nothing can be done, I'm out. But actually, the people who work with us and do the best, we have these lifetime relationships with, and we love the people we work with because, ultimately we are a relationships organization, and we want to help you be as healthy as possible. But we're the ones that, instead of looking at what's the present danger, we like to look into the future and say, what are the things in the next 10 years that are going to be the biggest risks? So if you're 45 right now, what's going to be the biggest threat when you're 55? And so if we can mitigate that and start sooner, that makes a big difference. And so I apologize if my internet's looks like I'm okay now, but so no death by neglect, no surprises. So we want to get the right test order. We don't want to play guessing games. And so this is where you get the right treatments, the right testing ahead of time, not any later than it needs to be. And then we also believe that health improves everything. And so we think that people can be unreasonably healthy at any age, even if everyone around you isn't. This is where you have someone who's, I have patients in their 80s and people are like, how are you so healthy? You have so much energy and you're outperforming these 60-year-olds. Like, that's what we mean by being unreasonably healthy. So if this is, you, then come with us on the next phase of the journey, and we'll go into some of the treatments we've been able to deploy. So first of all, there's 3 steps to succeed. Number 1, you've got to analyze the areas of the body that have interferences, and kidney and liver issues. You've got to look at everything upstream. And so that means looking at metabolomics, looking at toxic burden in the body, environmental factors, genetics. These are all really important because as you start analyzing these pathways, you've got to analyze bacteria in the gut. Prevotella, for example, is a bacteria that we find elevated in many of our patients who have kidney disease and kidney issue. And that Prevotella has an impact on what's called lipopolysaccharides. And those lipopolysaccharides can have a direct impact on your inflammation in your body, which impacts your kidneys. So we want to analyze the areas of inflammation, what's making you tired and what's making you toxic. And then once we've analyzed it, then we can optimize those pathways. So you can start regenerating better energy. And then the real transformation occurs is when you get your health independence back. And so you're free from the disease pattern itself. So in doing this, we take you through these 4 different phases of care. The reset, which is where we work on the different mindsets, the adrenal response, because they sit right on top of your kidneys, the hormones, and then we do the recharge, which is where we help correct the DNA expression so that your body has better cell-to-cell communication. We work on the detoxification pathways, the mitochondria. And then the restorative phase is where we correct the metabolic flexibility, the gut health, the cognition, so that you can reclaim your confidence, lifespan, and relationships. So in the right testing, a lot of people ask, what are the testing that I need to have done if I have kidney or liver issues? And some of those are going to be a functional blood chemistry. Many of you have comprehensive tests you've had ran with your endocrinologist. It's fine. We can look at those, but there is another level of testing that goes into the nuances of the health patterns in your body. So remember, we're looking at the health side of things, not the disease side of things. And then we want to look at complete digestive testing and then metabolomics as well. So those are the 3 core tests that we find are very helpful. So here's a patient of ours, Debbie. She did a lot of work because she wanted to lose weight, but she also noticed that she was getting skin tags and sunspots. She had a very sluggish renal system, and it was something that she was concerned about because it wasn't the primary thing that brought her in, but she was worried about her family history of kidney failure. And some of her symptoms showed that she had other things going on that could actually indicate that she had some problems. So she had extreme pain, fatigue, and anxiety, headaches. She craved sugar and fast food. She was irritable. Her personal life was impacting her professional life. And she tried all the diets, hired the best concierge doctors, specialists, exercise routines. And when we ran her labs, we found that sure enough, her blood urea nitrogen levels were elevated from a functional perspective. Her blood urea nitrogen and creatinine ratios were off as well, which means, remember that garage door? Her garage door wasn't quite opened all the way to get the garbage out. And that was starting to impact her. We noticed that she had low potassium, and then her sodium potassium levels were off, which indicated that her adrenal stress and the adrenal burden was starting to diminish her body's ability to move the electrolytes, and she was very dehydrated. So we looked even deeper, and we found that her ferritin was high. So she had high levels of inflammation. Cholesterol levels were high, and especially her LDL cholesterol. And then her cholesterol to HDL ratio were really high as well, which indicated it's time for her to, really start looking at this inflammatory pattern, because her system was on fire. Her homocysteine levels were 11.2, and that attributed to a lot of the brain fog that she was having. And the homocysteine also is one of those markers that shows how well your body is utilizing methionine in this cycle called methylation that your liver is primarily responsible for. And when homocysteine gets high, it's a big marker that your blood-brain barrier is breached. And it also compromises your liver detoxification pathways. So as we went on her journey, we said, okay, some of the things we want to work on are your thyroid. We've got to work on the kidneys, the adrenals, the liver, and then remove all of the excess ferritin and homocysteine so that your body can actually start to heal. So some of the peptides we utilize for her, we got her on Selenk. So that's a peptide that can help calm down some of the anxiety. It's a nasal spray, very simple one. We also had her on a peptide called epitalin to reset her sleep cycle. And epitalin is a telomerase enzyme, and it's really helpful for resetting the central nervous system. And it's great for the kidneys, because what epitalin does is it helps change the cortisol secretion. So cortisol is a hormone that's secreted and governed by your adrenal glands and by your kidneys. And so what happens when you reset the sleep cycles with epitalin is you get more healthier expression of cortisol, which calms down the inflammation in the kidneys and helps the kidneys function better. We also helped work on her muscle with CJC1295. We helped work on memory and focus with sarcotropin. We worked on her KPV and BPC 157 pathways with those peptides, which helped improve her gut. So what happened with her is, when working with us for our 6-month program, she's 42 pounds lighter. Her kidneys are healthier than they've been in 10 years, and her thyroid's working again. So not only did we help, circumvent some of the issues that could have happened in the future, but she's feeling better than ever. And so I think as you look at the options that are there, there's so many things that can be done to help govern proper kidney health. And so I think some of the things you can do right away is, number one, start thinking about, okay, where do I want my life to go from here? If you're somebody who is looking for help, and if you say, this is me, I'm ready to take the next step, I can tell you the people that we work best with are the people who have a vision for their future. They want to get their kidneys healthy, their liver healthy. They want to get their whole body transformed. And so if that's you, then all you need to do is reach out to us at 801-582-2011 and set up a discovery call to see if you're a good fit and if you qualify for our program. And if you do, then what happens in our program is our patients enjoy these monthly fulfillments of peptides. We use specialized products called CellCore to open up the filtration systems in the kidneys and liver. And then we also use customized supplements. And those are very important because there's certain things that you don't want to do that can jam up the kidneys or the liver, but there's also great ways that you can maximize the expression in these organs and glands. We also will get the right supplements and peptides for you based on what you have going on in your body. And then the beautiful thing about this is, at East West, we are one of the most forward-thinking and actually lead the way in peptide therapy with over 5,400 successful peptide prescriptions. We only use peptides that are compounded by pharmacies that have passed through all of the FDA criteria. And in this, we've enjoyed a 95% success rate in helping our patients improve their health, 82% improvement in sleep, and a 200% improvement in energy. You'll work with our entire team in our process. We've got Dr. Amy Steinley, who's our medical provider, nurse practitioner, Sarah Sapinski, Heather Moore, both functional medicine practitioners, licensed acupuncturists. You've got Tristan, who's our fitness advisor, Jenny and Andy, who are our health advisors, Cade, who's our clinic director, and then Misha and Tucker, who are our program advisors. And so we've got a dynamic team. And as long as you follow through on the process and do some of the things that we ask you to do, get rid of some of the things we ask you to get rid of, there's no reason why you won't have the success you need. And so I really appreciate you guys being part of our community, taking the time. For those of you who've heard this, if you're like, oh, I've got great kidney and liver function, I'm doing awesome, then keep that up. Hopefully you learned some things today. For those of you who are looking for deeper answers, reach out to us. If you do know of somebody who has early stage kidney disease or liver failure, it's really important that they get help very quickly, because unfortunately, when these systems start to go and when they're in a degenerative state, it's very hard to turn that around. So thank you everyone for being a part of this, and I will see you very soon. Take care.